Ancient strategy, modern sales, one usable line per episode.
Last time, hit the gap, not the wall. Today, removing friction instead of adding pressure. And why the fastest way to move a deal forward is to take something away. Here's what keeps happening. A deal is moving, meetings going well, stakeholders engaged. Then it stalls. Not dead, just stuck. No reply to my follow-up. No timeline for the next step. So I do what I've always done. Add more.
More
Emails. More case studies. More ROI data. More urgency. Just checking in. Wanted to make sure you saw this. Our pricing changes next quarter. I add pressure hoping something breaks loose. By the end of this episode, you'll know why adding pressure freezes deals, and how removing friction thaws them. My old belief, when a deal stalls, it needs energy. More input, more touch points, more reasons to act now. If they're not moving, push them.
sounds logical.
It felt logical, but the more I pushed, the longer deals took. Some went completely silent, not because they lost interest, but because every new thing I added gave them one more thing to process. One more decision to make. One more reason to delay.
You were adding weight to something that was already stuck.
Adding weight.
When a deal stalls, most salespeople assume it needs more momentum. So they push, but the deal isn't stalled because of insufficient force. It's stalled because something is in the way. A concern, a process, a conversation the prospect hasn't had internally. Adding pressure to a blocked path doesn't clear the path. It creates more friction. Sun Tzu understood movement deeply. Zhan Xin Yu Xian Zhu, Bai Jin Fu Suo Ji. When the army encounters dangerous obstacles on the march, it must carefully search and examine them.
Search and examine, not charge through.
Exactly. Sun Tzu's generals studied the terrain before moving. They looked for signs of trouble, dust patterns, bird movements, changes in the river. Di Jin Er Jing Zhe, Shi Qi Xian Yi. When the enemy is near yet remains quiet, he is relying on a strong position. The lesson: obstacles have causes. Find the cause, remove it, movement follows. Hold that image, we'll come back to it.
So the general doesn't push the army through a swamp. He finds a way around it, or drains it first.
The difference between a stuck army and a moving one isn't more soldiers. It's fewer obstacles. Same with deals. The difference between a stalled deal and a closing deal isn't more pressure. It's less friction.
And in sales, what's the friction?
Friction is anything that makes the next step harder than it needs to be. A confusing proposal, too many options, an unclear decision process, a stakeholder who has concerns but hasn't voiced them, a risk the buyer feels but can't articulate. Every unresolved issue is a rock in the river.
So the deal isn't stalled because they don't want it. It's stalled because something specific is making the next step feel difficult.
And your job isn't to push past that difficulty. It's to remove it. When you clear the friction, movement happens naturally. Without force, without urgency, without another follow-up email.
That changes the whole approach. Instead of, how do I push this forward? The question becomes, what's making the next step hard?
Exactly. Subtraction beats addition. Let's look at the 3 places friction hides.
Where does friction live in a deal?
3 places. Almost always. First, complexity in the proposal. Too many options. Too many pages. Too many pricing tiers. The buyer looks at it and thinks, I need to study this. I need to check with legal. I need to compare these tiers. Each line is a decision point. Each decision point is friction. The simpler the proposal, the faster it moves.
Second,
unspoken concerns. The stakeholder who nods in meetings but hasn't said what they really think. The CFO who hasn't weighed in. The end user who wasn't consulted. Their silence isn't agreement. It's unprocessed friction. Until those voices are heard, the deal drags.
And third,
missing clarity on the next step. The prospect says, "We'll get back to you." But there's no date, no owner, no defined action. That ambiguity is friction. Without a clear next step, the deal enters the void. And the void is where deals go to die quietly.
So the pattern is, deal stalls. I panic, I add more follow-ups, more data, more urgency, but each addition creates more decisions. More friction, the deal gets heavier, movement slows further.
And you think the prospect lost interest.
When I'm the one who made the next step too heavy.
So how do you remove friction?
That's exactly what I need.
3 tools. Each one lightens the path forward. Tool 1. Simplify the ask. Look at your proposal. Can you cut it in half? Can 3 options become 1 recommendation? Can 10 pages become 2? Every element you remove is a decision you're eliminating. Fewer decisions mean faster movement. Ask yourself, what can I take away so the next step is obvious?
Tool 2.
Surface the unspoken. Ask, is there anyone on your team who hasn't weighed in yet but will need to approve this? Or, what concern hasn't come up yet that might slow things down? You're not adding information, you're removing hidden obstacles. Once a concern is spoken, it can be addressed. While it's hidden, it blocks everything.
And the third?
Define the micro step. Don't ask for the big commitment. Ask for the smallest possible next action. Would it help if I sent a 1-page summary for your team? Can we schedule 15 minutes for the CFO's questions? Make the next step so small it doesn't trigger resistance. Small steps create momentum. Momentum clears friction. Now, the one line for this episode.
Let's hear it.
Remove friction. Movement follows.
Elegant.
When a deal stalls, don't add. Subtract. What's making the next step hard? What can you remove so the path forward is clear? Sun Tzu's generals didn't push armies through obstacles. They studied the terrain and cleared the way.
So the line is a diagnostic.
A strategic diagnostic. Not why won't they move, but what's stopping them. And then, remove it. 2 more tools to make this stick. Before your next follow-up, ask yourself, am I about to add something, or remove something?
You're checking your own impulse.
If you're about to send more data, more slides, more urgency, stop. Instead, ask what you can take away. Simplify, clarify, reduce. The follow-up that removes friction is worth 10 that add pressure.
And the second tool?
Ask the prospect directly. What would make the next step easier? Not bigger, not faster, easier. Let them tell you where the friction is. They usually know, they just haven't been asked.
3 tools. Remove friction, movement follows. Am I adding or removing? And, what would make the next step easier? All about subtraction.
Let's lock them in.
Here's my takeaway. Stalled deals don't need more pressure. They need less friction. The proposal is too complex. A stakeholder hasn't spoken. The next step isn't clear. Each one is a rock in the river. Remove the rocks, the water flows.
Keep going.
Sun Tzu said study the terrain before moving. Find the obstacle, examine it, don't charge through, clear the way. In sales, friction hides in complexity, silence, and ambiguity. 3 tools: simplify the ask, surface the unspoken, define the microstep. The principle: subtract before you add. Make the path lighter, not the push harder.
Drill zone. Come back here before your next follow-up on a stalled deal. A deal has gone silent. 2 weeks since the last meeting. Your instinct says, send a case study, add urgency, mention the deadline. What do you tell yourself?
Remove friction, movement follows.
Again, like you've watched 100 deals die under their own weight.
Remove friction, movement follows.
Good. Now the impulse check.
Am I about to add something, or remove something?
And the clearing question.
What would make the next step easier?
The sequence. Deal stalls. Reset. Remove friction, movement follows. Check. Am I adding or removing? Ask. What would make the next step easier? Don't push through the swamp. Drain it first.
Reset. Check. Ask.
This week's test. Find one stalled deal. Instead of adding a follow-up, look at your last proposal. Can you simplify it? Is there an unspoken concern? Is the next step clear and small?
And if I can't find the friction?
Ask the prospect, what would make this easier to move forward? They'll tell you, and what they tell you, remove it.
Which tool should I try first?
Whichever fits your stuck deal. A. Remove friction. Movement follows. B. Am I adding or removing? Or C. What would make the next step easier? Drop your pick in the comments. I read every one.
What's next?
How deals start moving on their own, and why the best closers don't push at all. They build conditions where movement is inevitable. Same calm tone, one usable line.
Ancient strategy, modern sales, one usable line per episode.